Happy Pride, everyone. So I'll introduce myself first and then I'll get into it. My name is Circe. My pronouns are she, her. I am gray ace, bisexual, non-binary trans woman. I am a white descendant of colonizers. I am disabled, neurodivergent, and fat, and I have been a Buddhist in the Tibetan tradition for about 9 years now. First, I want to acknowledge and express my deep gratitude for my gurus, my teachers, my queer trans elders and mentors. Without them, I would not be here. I would not have attained the small measure of freedom and compassion that I have. I am deeply grateful for their impact on my life. I pray that all those who serve in these roles find greater peace and happiness, and I ask that they continue to be a refuge and source of healing for all they come in contact with. I also want to thank Lama Matt and the Rime Center for this opportunity. I'm really grateful to have the chance to talk to you today. So today I'd like to talk to you about the Dharma of coming out of the closet. I want to emphasize that this is based on my own experience of being queer. I can't speak for the experience of others, as they can and will differ significantly from my own. And I hope that some of what I say may resonate with you. I also want to mention that constructively listening to marginalized voices involves a willingness to recognize that people of various identities can and do have radically different experiences than you do. And to believe people are truthful when they tell you about themselves and their experiences, no matter how little it may resonate with your own experience. I also need to add that my coming out is happening within the context of Western colonialism. Many cultures around the world recognized multiple genders, but were silenced by Western colonial violence. So now the talk proper. When I came out as trans, I had been a Buddhist for a few years already. I had come to accept the Dharma as being truthful and helpful, and had seen benefit from regular study and practice of the Dharma. When I came out, I recognized that acknowledging my trans identity and starting gender transition was also truthful and helpful for me. But I was soon challenged with a big question that was really hard to resolve. Does the Buddhist teaching on anatta, or non-self, invalidate my insistence that my authentic self is trans? So that is to say, what does it mean to say that this is my true self while practicing a religion that teaches no self? I searched for answers, asked mentors, and read what I could, but I found no answer that could adequately address my concerns. You see, when a trans person asks about no self, it can have a deeper significance than many cisgender people may be able to recognize. I faced a kind of double whammy, that Buddhism taught that I had no self, and that society taught that my gender wasn't real. Further, there are ways in which meditations on no self help to dismantle our clinging to a concrete permanent self. But my understanding of this seemed like a double whammy when combined with the fact that in our culture, transgender people constantly have to defend and negotiate the validity of their identities. Their identities are seemingly up for debate by those who don't struggle with gender, and their lived experiences are not listened to. I felt that there was a deep way in which I would have to forego finally feeling comfortable in my gender in order to practice the Dharma, or I would have to give up the Dharma in order to finally feel comfortable in my gender. I had an intuition, though, that these things could be reconciled. It is an ongoing process. When I was struggling with this, no answers were apparent. So I decided, to just live in that, I decided to live in that contradiction. I knew the Dharma was true. and I knew my gender was real and that transition was necessary. So I continued both with the hope that I could learn to see the Dharma in my gender identity. When I asked the question about non-self and gender identity, I misunderstood what non-self meant. But continuing to remain in the supposed contradiction that I felt, I came to realize in a more real way what anatta truly means. Anatta is most commonly translated as no self or non-self. The teaching is that the self that appears is temporary and arises due to the coming together of the right causes and conditions. The self changes and is interconnected in a deep way with what is not usually considered the self. All this means is that there is no eternal self that exists in isolation from the world. For us, there is still a self that appears, and it is this self that we have to work with in our Dharma practice. Regarding my gender identity, this means that there is a self that arises as transgender, but the trans self that arises is temporary. I didn't always recognize myself as trans, but the signs of being such continued to accumulate until I did. And I will no longer be around one day. I'll die, and then will no longer recognize myself as trans. And also that this trans self arises due to the coming together of various causes and conditions. I came out due to the increased representation of trans folk in the media, to the fierceness of trans people in my life who were out and proud, and to my Dharma practice, which led me into a challengingly direct confrontation with my own anxieties and fears. It's here that I kind of want to shift gears a little bit and bring this into the context of Pride Month. So when I came out as trans, I had the realization that due to the fear and shame I was raised with, I had sought ways to make myself invisible or to misdirect people from any queerness or femininity that might slip through the cracks of my false front. So an important work for me, an important part of my Dharma practice even, is to be visible as myself, to be out and proud. Coming out for me, while frightening, was ultimately an act of compassion. I saw the suffering I was in due to being closeted, and I saw the way to address this suffering was to come out and begin transition. Coming out was also due to the compassion of others who were willing to address their own suffering by setting the example for me of coming out and being proud. When I saw others before me who were out and proud, I was able to recognize myself in them, to not feel alone, to have courage to be myself. And this is generosity. In Jigme Lingpa's Treasury of Precious Qualities, he says the generosity includes the giving of Dharma, riches, fearlessness, and love. The last two of those is what Pride is about for me. Being out and being visible, and by doing so, practicing fearlessness and love. And it's also giving fearlessness and love. I hope to pass on the fearlessness and love that I received from my trans elders. This is part of what Pride is about for me. And this is also what the Dharma is about. When we gain a measure of fearlessness and love, we are more at peace, and we are better able to engage in the Buddhist work of alleviating the suffering of others. To my queer siblings who remain in the closet for whatever reason, I want you to know that I am with you, that I love you, and that my deep wish is for you to be able to find freedom, happiness, and peace. Here, I want to end with a quote from the TV show Sense8, given by the trans character Nomi Marks. She says, "I have been thinking about my life and all of the mistakes that I've made. The ones that stay with me, the ones that I regret, are the ones that I made because of fear. For a long time, I was afraid to be who I am because I was taught by my parents that there's something wrong with someone like me, something offensive, something you would avoid. maybe even pity, something that you could never love. My mom, she's a fan of St. Thomas Aquinas. She calls pride a sin. And of all the venal and mortal sins, St. Thomas saw pride as the queen of the seven deadlies. He saw it as the ultimate getaway sin that would turn you quickly into a sinaholic. But hating isn't a sin on that list. Neither is shame. I was afraid of this parade because I wanted so badly to be a part of it. So today, I'm marching for that part of me that was once afraid to march, and for all the people who can't march, the people who are living lives like I did. Today, I march to remember that I'm not just a me, but I'm also a we. And we march with pride. Thanks for your time and for listening to me. I hope that you may have found some benefit in this.